The night sky over Seoul burned with falling stars. Taemin watched them through the convenience store window as he wiped down the counter. It was almost midnight, and he was the only one left in the shop. At 17, he should have been home studying or hanging out with friends. Instead, he was here, working the late shift to pay the bills. His younger sister Hannah was asleep at home. She was only 12, and Taemin had been taking care of her for 3 years now, ever since their parents died in a car accident. The store manager let him work nights because he needed the money. School during the day, work at night, sleep whenever he could find time. That was Taemin's life. The meteors kept falling. They were beautiful, streaking across the sky in brilliant colors. Green, blue, purple. Taemin had never seen meteors like that before. He stepped outside to get a better look, forgetting about the mop and bucket behind him. That's when everything changed. The meteors weren't meteors at all. One of them stopped in midair, hovering above the street. It was a ship. A massive metal thing that blocked out the stars. Taemin's heart hammered in his chest. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. He just stood there, staring up at the impossible thing floating above him. A beam of light shot down from the ship. It hit Taemin before he could even scream. His whole body went numb. He felt himself lifting off the ground, rising up toward the ship. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the convenience store below, getting smaller and smaller. When Taemin woke up, he was in a cage. The walls were made of some kind of energy field that buzzed when he touched it. His head hurt, and there was a sharp pain behind his right ear. He reached back and felt a small bump there, like something had been put under his skin. He wasn't alone. There were other cages around him, filled with creatures he had never seen before. Some looked like giant lizards walking on 2 legs. Others had too many arms or too many eyes. One creature was just a floating ball of light that made humming sounds. In the cage next to him was another human. A young woman, maybe in her early 20s. She had short black hair and glasses that were slightly bent. She was sitting with her knees pulled up to her chest, staring at nothing. "Hey," Taemin said. His voice came out rough and dry. The woman looked at him. Her eyes were red from crying. "You're Korean," she said. "I'm Yuna. I was studying at the university when they took me." "Taemin," he replied. "I was working at a store." He looked around at all the alien creatures. "What's happening? Where are we?" Yuna laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "We've been abducted by aliens. Real aliens. I've been awake for 2 days now, listening to them talk. That thing behind your ear? It's a translator. You can understand any language now." As if to prove her point, 2 of the alien guards walked past their cages. They looked like giant lizards, standing almost 7 feet tall, with scales that shimmered in the dim light. They were talking to each other in a language that sounded like hissing and clicking. But Taemin could understand every word. "These ones won't last long in the arena," one guard said. "The humans? They're too weak. They'll die in the first round," the other replied. "Good. The crowd loves watching the weak ones get torn apart." Taemin felt his blood run cold. "Arena? Die in the first round?" He looked at Yuna and saw that she had heard it too. "They're taking us to some kind of fighting arena," Yuna whispered. "They kidnap weak species from primitive planets and make them fight for entertainment. We're supposed to be easy kills." "That's insane," Taemin said. "We can't fight those things. Look at them. They're huge. I know." Yuna wiped her eyes. "I've been trying to think of a way out, but there isn't one. The ship is too advanced. The guards are too strong. We're just going to die." Taemin sat down in his cage. He thought about Hannah, waiting for him at home. She would wake up tomorrow and he wouldn't be there. She would be alone. The thought made his chest hurt worse than any physical pain. No, he couldn't think like that. He had survived 3 years taking care of his sister by himself. He had worked 2 jobs while going to school. He had learned to cook, clean, help with homework, and handle things that most 17-year-olds never had to deal with. He was a survivor. "We're not going to die," Taman said firmly. Yuna looked at him like he was crazy. "Did you not hear what I just said?" "I heard you, but I've got a little sister waiting for me back home. I promised her I'd always come back. I'm not breaking that promise." Taman stood up and examined his cage carefully. "You said you study at the university. What's your major?" "Xenobiology," Yuna said. "The study of potential alien life." "Ironic, right? That means you're smart. You know how to study things. Figure them out." Taman pointed at the guards. "So we study them. We learn how they think, how they fight, what their weaknesses are. We might be weaker, but humans didn't get to the top of Earth's food chain by being the strongest. How did we get there?" Yuna asked. Tae-Min smiled grimly. "We got there by being too stubborn to die." Over the next 3 days on the ship, Taemin and Yuna watched everything. They watched the guards change shifts. They watched how the other prisoners acted. They listened to every conversation they could hear with their translator implants. They learned that the ship belonged to something called the Varan Hunting Syndicate. The Varan were one of the galaxy's most feared warrior species. They captured weaker species from undeveloped worlds and sold them to arena worlds across the galaxy. It was perfectly legal under galactic law, as long as they didn't take species that had achieved space travel. Earth didn't have space travel. So Earth was fair game. Tae-Min learned that the captain of the ship was named Richter. He was cruel and enjoyed watching the prisoners suffer. Some of the guards were less cruel, but they all followed orders without question. On the 4th day, the ship landed. The energy fields around the cages disappeared, and the prisoners were herded out into a massive facility. Taemin and Yuna were pushed into a holding pen with dozens of other creatures. Above them, a massive screen showed images of creatures fighting and dying in an arena. The crowd cheered with every death. Taemin realized with growing horror that this was their future. This was where they were going to die. But then he saw something that changed everything. Another human, a small child, maybe 10 years old, sitting alone in the corner of the pen. A boy with scared eyes and dirt on his face. Tae-Min pushed through the crowd and knelt down next to the child. "Hey, it's okay. What's your name?" "Jiwoo," the boy whispered. "I want to go home." Taemin put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "Me too, but until we can get home, we stick together. Understand? Humans take care of each other." Yuna joined them, and the 3 of them sat together in that horrible place. Around them, alien creatures prepared for death. But Taemin made a decision right then. He wasn't going to let Jiwoo die here. He wasn't going to let Yuna die here. And he wasn't going to die here either. Humans were survivors. And Taemin was going to prove it. The arena was bigger than any stadium Taemin had ever seen. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, cheering and shouting in hundreds of different languages. The translator implant in his head turned it all into a roar of bloodlust. They wanted violence. They wanted death. They wanted to show. Tae-Min stood in the preparation room with Yuna and Jiwoo. The boy was shaking, and Taemin kept one hand on his shoulder. Other prisoners around them were from a dozen different species. Some looked terrified. Others looked angry. All of them knew what was coming. A massive insectoid creature entered the room. It had 4 arms and a head that looked like a praying mantis. Its voice came out in clicks and whistles, but the translator made it understandable. "I am Soon, the arena master. You are here to fight for the entertainment of our guests. Fight well, and you may survive. Fight poorly, and you will die. That is all you need to know." Soon's multi-sided eyes scanned the room. First match. The humans. Taemin's heart dropped. Next to him, Yuna went pale. Little Jiwoo let out a small whimper. Wait, Taemin said, stepping forward. The kid is just 10 years old. He can't fight. Soong's head tilted to look at him. Then he will die quickly. A mercy, really? No. Taemin felt anger rising in his chest. I'll fight for him. Let me go instead. The arena master made a sound that might have been laughter. You misunderstand. All three of you will fight together against a Kragath warrior. It will be brief. They were pushed into a tunnel that led to the arena floor. Taemin could hear the crowd getting louder as they walked. Yuna was breathing fast, on the edge of panic. Jiwoo was crying quietly. Listen to me, Taemin said urgently. We can do this. Yuna, you're smart. Jiwoo, you're small and fast. I'm stubborn. We use what we have. How? Yuna demanded. We're going to die, Taemin. We're not warriors. We're just normal people. Exactly. Taemin smiled grimly. We're normal people who survived on Earth. Do you know how many things on Earth try to kill humans every day? Disease, weather, predators, accidents. We survived all of that. We survived because humans are really, really good at one thing. What's that? Jiwoo asked in a small voice, not giving up. The tunnel opened and blinding light hit them. They stepped out onto the sand of the arena floor. The crowd roared. Taemin looked up and saw thousands of alien faces staring down at them. Most of them were laughing dot across the arena. A gate opened. The creature that came out was massive. It stood 8 feet tall and was made of what looked like rock or crystal. Its body reflected the light in rainbow colors. It had 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. This was a Kragath warrior. The crowd cheered even louder. Spread out, Taemin hissed to the others. Don't stand together. Make it choose who to chase. The Kragath charged. It was fast, much faster than something that big should be. It went straight for Jiwoo, the smallest target. Taemin ran forward and grabbed a handful of sand from the arena floor. He threw it at the warrior's eyes. The Kragath roared and swung one massive arm. Taemin barely ducked in time. The blow would have taken his head off, but it gave Jiwoo time to run away. The joints. Yuna shouted. Go for the joints where the crystal meets. She was right. Taemin could see small gaps in the warrior's armor where the crystal plates connected. He looked around desperately for a weapon and saw a piece of broken bone from some previous fight. He grabbed it. The Kragath came at him again. This time, Taemin didn't try to dodge. He dove forward, sliding under the warrior's legs like he was stealing home base. As he slid past, he jammed the bone into the gap behind the creature's knee and twisted hard. The Kragath stumbled. It wasn't a serious wound, but it was something. The crowd's laughter died down a little. For the next 10 minutes, Taemin, Yuna, and Jiwoo did something that shocked everyone watching. They didn't fight like warriors. They fought like humans. They ran. They hid. They threw sand and stones. They worked together, taking turns distracting the Kragath while the others caught their breath. When the warrior got close to Jiwoo, Yuna would scream and throw something to draw attention. When Yuna got tired, Taemin would charge in. They were losing. Slowly but surely, the Kragath was beating them down. Taemin had cuts all over his arms. Yuna was limping. Jiwoo had fallen twice. But they weren't dead. And with each passing minute, Taemin learned more about how the warrior fought. It was strong, but not very smart. It got angry when they ran away. It always swung with its right arms first. And it was getting tired. Not as tired as the humans, but tired nonetheless. One more time, Taemin gasped to Yuna. We try it one more time. They had found a piece of broken metal from the arena wall. It was sharp on one end. It was their only real weapon. Timon ran at the Kragath, screaming. The warrior saw him coming and raised all four arms to smash him flat. But at the last second, Timon slid to the side. Yuna came from the other direction, jamming the metal piece into the gap at the warrior's elbow. The Kragath roared in pain. Its right arms went limp. It turned toward Yuna with rage in its eyes, raising its left arms to strike. That's when Jiwoo ran up behind it and kicked it in the back of its damaged knee with all his strength. The massive warrior fell. It crashed to the ground with a sound like breaking glass. Before it could get up, Taemin grabbed the metal piece and drove it into the gap at the base of the warrior's skull. The Kragath stopped moving. For a moment, there was total silence in the arena. Taemin stood there, covered in blood and sand, breathing hard. Yuna was on her knees. Jiwoo was crying. Then the crowd exploded. Some were cheering. Some were booing. Some were just stunned. No one had expected the humans to win. Soon, the arena master looked down at them from his viewing box. His alien face was impossible to read, but Taemin thought he saw something like surprise in those insect eyes. They were taken back to the holding cells. Other prisoners stared at them as they walked past. The humans who weren't supposed to last one fight had won. Barely, messily, but they had won. Over the next 2 weeks, Taemin, Yuna, and Jiwoo fought 4 more times. Each fight was harder than the last. They won some and lost some, but they survived. And each time they survived, other aliens started to notice. Humans didn't fight fair. They used tricks, traps, and teamwork. They studied their opponents and found weaknesses. Most importantly, they simply refused to die. Even when they were hurt, even when they were exhausted, they kept getting back up. The other prisoners started calling them the pack that doesn't quit. It wasn't a compliment at first, but Taemin wore it with pride. Between fights, Taemin watched the other matches carefully. He learned about different species and their fighting styles. He memorized what worked and what didn't. Yuna used her xenobiology knowledge to identify biological weaknesses. Even little Jiwoo started to understand the patterns. They became a team, a family. But Taemin knew it couldn't last forever. Eventually, they would face something they couldn't beat. Eventually, their luck would run out. He just hoped they would live long enough to find a way home. On their 15th day in the arena, something changed. An announcement echoed through the facility. A special guest was coming to watch the fights. Someone important. Tae-Min didn't know it yet, but his life was about to change forever. The Alpha Hunter was coming. The arena was different today. The usual rowdy crowd was quieter, more respectful. Premium seats that were normally empty were now filled with important-looking aliens. Something big was happening. Tae-Min sat in the holding cell with Yuna and Jiwoo, watching the other fights on the screen. They had been in the arena for 3 weeks now, and they had learned the rhythm of this place. Morning fights were usually quick kills for the crowd's entertainment. Afternoon fights were more skilled. Evening fights were the main events. "Look at the private boxes," Yuna said, pointing at the screen. "I've never seen them all full before." Soon, the arena master entered the holding area. His forearms gestured for everyone's attention. "Today we are honored by a visit from Kelvin, the Alpha Hunter of the Valkyr. He is the greatest warrior in known space. You will fight with honor and give him a good show." The name meant nothing to Taemin, but the other prisoners reacted with fear. Even the veteran fighters looked nervous. An old creature in the cell next to them, something that looked like a turtle with 6 legs, spoke up. "The Valkyr are the apex species. Kelvin has never been defeated in combat. He travels the galaxy hunting worthy opponents. If he's here, someone is going to die today." Taemin felt Jiwoo press closer to him. The boy had nightmares every night, but he was getting braver. He trusted Taemin to keep him safe. That trust was both comforting and terrifying. The morning fights came and went. In the afternoon, Soon called for Taemin. Just Taemin. Not all three of them. You will fight the veteran fighter Chiral, Soon announced. He has won 43 matches. You have won 7. It should be entertaining. Yuna grabbed Taemin's arm. Don't go. Demand that we fight together. They won't allow it. Taemin looked at Jiwoo and then at Yuna. If I don't come back, take care of the kid. Promise me. You're coming back, Yuna said fiercely. You always come back. Taemin walked alone down the tunnel to the arena. His heart was pounding, but he forced himself to breathe slowly. He had learned a lot in 3 weeks. He had learned to read his opponents, to spot weaknesses, to survive when survival seemed impossible. But most importantly, he had learned that humans had one advantage over every other species he had met. Humans were the best at adapting. The tunnel opened to blinding sunlight. Taemin stepped onto the sand and looked up at the crowd. Then he saw him dot in the highest private box sat a creature unlike anything Taemin had seen before. He was massive, at least 8 feet tall, with a body that looked like a wolf standing on 2 legs. His fur was silver gray, and his face had the features of a predator. Scars covered his arms and chest, evidence of countless battles. He wore simple armor and had weapons strapped to his body. This was Calvin, the Alpha Hunter, and he was watching Taemin with intense, intelligent eyes. The gates across the arena opened, and Chiral emerged. The veteran fighter was a crystalline warrior like the first one Taemin had fought, but bigger and covered in battle scars. He moved with confidence. The fight began. KY, or Al, was fast and experienced. He didn't make the mistakes younger fighters made. He didn't charge blindly or get angry when Taemin ran away. He fought smart, cutting off escape routes, forcing Taemin into corners. Taemin took a hard hit to the ribs and felt something crack. Pain shot through his chest. He rolled away and came up with a piece of broken metal he had hidden in the sand during a previous fight. Always prepare. Always plan ahead. But Chiral had seen this trick before. He knocked the metal away and grabbed Taemin by the throat, lifting him off the ground. The crowd cheered. This was what they wanted to see. Taemin couldn't breathe. Black spots danced in his vision. He was going to die here. He thought of Hannah, his little sister, waiting at home. He thought of Yuna and Jiwoo, who depended on him. With the last of his strength, Taemin didn't try to break free. Instead, he did something unexpected. He kicked sand up into Chiral's face, then drove his thumbs into the gaps in the warrior's wrist joints. Chiral's grip loosened just enough. Taemin fell to the ground, gasping for air. He rolled away as Chiral's foot came crashing down where his head had been. For the next 5 minutes, Taemin fought like a desperate animal. He used every dirty trick he knew. Sand in the eyes, feints and misdirection. He even bit Chiral's arm when the warrior got too close. The crowd was going wild. This wasn't the clean, honorable combat they usually saw. This was raw survival. But Taemin was losing. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts. His ribs were definitely broken. He could barely stand. Kyr Al moved in for the kill. Taemin saw the blow coming but was too slow to dodge. The crystalline fist caught him in the chest and sent him flying. He hit the arena wall hard and collapsed. Everything hurt. Taemin tried to get up but couldn't. His body wouldn't respond. This was it. He had finally found the fight he couldn't win. Through blurry vision, he saw Chiral approaching to finish him off. The crowd was chanting for blood. Then Taemin heard Jiwoo's voice from the holding area. The boy was screaming his name, begging him to get up. Something inside Taemin broke. Not his body, but something deeper. He thought about everything he had survived. His parents' death. Raising his sister alone. getting abducted. The arena. All of it. He had survived all of it because he refused to quit. Dashman stood up. His legs shook and blood ran down his face. But he stood up. The crowd went quiet. Kyrl paused. Surprised. Dashman raised his fists. "I'm not done yet," he said through broken teeth. In the private box. Kelvin leaned forward. Kyrl charged. Taemin didn't run this time. He stepped into the charge and drove his shoulder into the warrior's damaged knee. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make Kyrl stumble. As the veteran fighter fell, Taemin grabbed a sharp piece of crystal that had broken off during the fight and jammed it into the gap at Kyrl's neck. The veteran went down. Dashman collapsed next to him, barely conscious. The crowd was silent for 3 full seconds. Then they exploded in cheers. Even those who had bet against him were amazed. Medical drones came to take both fighters away. As Taemin was carried off the sand, he looked up at the private boxes. Kelvin was standing now, his predator eyes locked on Dashman. The Alpha Hunter nodded once. A gesture of respect. Taemin blacked out. He woke up in a medical bay. His ribs had been healed with alien technology, and most of his cuts were gone. Yuna and Jiwoo were there, both crying with relief. "You idiot," Yuna said, punching his arm lightly. "You almost died." "But I didn't," Taemin replied with a weak smile. That night, everything changed. Sung came to their cell personally, which had never happened before. The arena master's insect face showed no emotion, but his voice carried shock. "The Alpha Hunter has requested a private hunt with you, human Taemin, in the death maze. Tomorrow at dawn." The other prisoners gasped. The turtle creature spoke up. "The death maze? No one survives the death maze against Kelvin." "Then I guess tomorrow will be interesting," Taemin said, trying to sound braver than he felt. That night, Taemin couldn't sleep. He knew what this meant. Kelvin had seen him fight and wanted to hunt him personally. It was supposed to be an honor. But all Taemin could think about was that he was going to die. Yuna sat next to him in the darkness. "Why would he choose you? Out of all the fighters here?" Taemin shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe he likes hunting weak prey." "You're not weak," Jiwoo said quietly. "You're the strongest person I know." Taemin looked at the boy and felt his chest tighten. If he died tomorrow, what would happen to Jiwoo? What would happen to Yuna? But he had no choice. When the Alpha Hunter called for a hunt, you couldn't refuse. At dawn, Taemin was taken to the death maze. It was a massive underground complex filled with traps, dead ends, and hunting grounds. Kelvin was already waiting there, his silver-gray fur gleaming in the dim light. For the first time, the Alpha Hunter spoke directly to Taemin. His voice was deep and resonant. "You fight with a protector's fury, like a valkyr defending their pack. This is rare in prey species. I want to see what else you can do, young human. Run well, hunt well. Show me your species' strength." Then the hunt began, and Taemin ran for his life. The death maze was dark and filled with the smell of old blood. Taemin ran through corridors made of stone, his footsteps echoing off the walls. Somewhere behind him, Kelvin was hunting. The Alpha Hunter had given him a 5-minute head start. Now that time was up. Min's heart hammered in his chest. This wasn't like fighting in the arena. There were no rules here. No crowd watching. Just predator and prey. But Taemin refused to think of himself as prey. Humans had been prey once, thousands of years ago on Earth. Then they had learned to think, to plan, to use tools. They had climbed to the top of the food chain, not through strength, but through intelligence. He could use that now. Taemin stopped running and started thinking. The maze had traps everywhere. He had already spotted 3 of them, a pit covered with sand, a tripwire connected to falling stones, and a section of wall that looked ready to collapse. The maze was designed to kill whoever was being hunted, unless you used the traps. Against the hunter, Dashman backtracked carefully. He found the tripwire and studied it. The mechanism was simple enough. If he could move it to a different location, set it up where Kelvin would trip it. He worked quickly, his hands shaking. He could hear something moving in the darkness. The Alpha Hunter was close. Taemin finished setting the trap and moved on. He found a side passage and climbed up into a small alcove in the wall. From here, he could see the corridor below without being easily spotted. He picked up a stone and threw it down the passage he had just come from. The sound echoed through the maze. Footsteps approached, slow and confident. Kelvin emerged from the shadows, moving like a ghost despite his size. His eyes scanned the corridor, and his nose twitched as he smelled the air. He was tracking Taemin by scent. The Alpha Hunter moved forward, following Taemin's trail. He stepped over the tripwire easily. Of course he did. Kelvin had probably seen that trap 100 times before. Taemin's trap hadn't been the tripwire. While resetting it, he had loosened several stones in the ceiling above where the wire was. When Kelvin stepped on the pressure plate that Taemin had found and repositioned, those stones came crashing down. Kelvin moved with incredible speed, but even he couldn't completely dodge. One large stone caught him on the shoulder. It didn't seriously hurt him, but it slowed him down for a second. That second was all Taemin needed. He dropped from his hiding spot and ran in the opposite direction. Behind him, he heard something that chilled his blood. Kelvin was laughing. The hunt continued for over an hour. Taemin set more traps. He used the maze's geography to his advantage. He even found a way to trigger a pit trap that almost caught the Alpha Hunter. But Kelvin was learning too. He started predicting Taemin's moves. He stopped falling for the obvious tricks. The hunter was adapting to Taemin's style, just as Taemin had adapted to the arena. They were learning from each other. Finally, Taemin made a mistake. He ran into a dead end. The walls were too smooth to climb, and there was no other exit. He turned to see Kelvin blocking the only way out. The Alpha Hunter was bleeding from a cut on his arm, where Taemin had triggered a blade trap. It was a small wound, barely worth noticing. But it was there. Taemin had actually hurt the undefeated warrior. Impressive, Kelvin said, his deep voice filling the small space. You fight not with strength, but with cunning. You use your environment as a weapon. You adapt and learn. He moved closer. Tell me, young human, why do you fight with such fury? What drives you? Taemin was exhausted and cornered, but he met the Alpha Hunter's eyes. I have people depending on me. A little sister back home. A boy named Ji-woo who needs protection. A friend named Yuna who deserves better than dying in this place. I fight because I can't let them down. Kelvin tilted his head. You fight for your pack. Not for glory. Not for yourself. For your pack. He came even closer. Do you know why I hunt, young human? No, Taemin admitted. I hunt to find those worthy of respect. The galaxy is full of warriors who fight for pride or pleasure. But the Valkyr value 3 things above all else: courage that does not break, cunning that finds the way, and loyalty that protects the pack. You have shown all 3. Kelvin extended one clawed hand. What is your name? Taemin. Taemin. Kelvin spoke the name carefully, as if testing its weight. You have done something no one has done in 20 cycles. You have wounded me in a hunt. For this, and for the strength of your spirit, I invoke the right of kinship. From this moment, you are not my prey. You are my brother. Taemin stared at the extended hand. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he knew it was important. Slowly, he reached out and took Kelvin's hand. The Alpha Hunter's grip was firm, but not crushing. Come, brother. We have much to discuss. What happened next? shocked the entire arena. Kelvin walked out of the death maze with Taemin alive and unhurt. He went directly to Soong, the arena master, and stated his intention clearly. I am purchasing the humans. All of them. They are under my protection now. Soong's insect eyes went wide. But they are property of the Varan Syndicate. Captain Richter will not agree. Then bring me to Richter. I will negotiate. The negotiation was brief and tense. Captain Richter, the Varan who had captured Taemin from Earth, was furious. The humans were making him a fortune. But Kelvin was not someone you refused lightly. The Valkyr were the most powerful warrior species in the galaxy. And the Alpha Hunter had killed captains for lesser insults. In the end, Kelvin paid an enormous sum and took custody of not just Taemin, Yuna, and Jiwoo, but 17 other humans that had been captured from various places around Earth. Some had been in the arena for months. Others had been taken from different parts of the planet. They all boarded Kelvin's ship, a sleek hunting vessel that was more advanced than anything Taemin had ever imagined. As the arena world shrank behind them, Taemin finally allowed himself to believe they might actually survive. Yuna sat next to him, still in shock. What just happened? Why would he save us? I'm not sure, Taemin admitted, but I think we just became part of his pack. Over the following weeks, Kelvin trained them. Not just in combat, though they learned that too. He taught them about the galaxy, about the hundreds of species and empires that filled the stars. He taught them galactic law and politics. He taught them survival skills that went far beyond what they had learned in the arena. But most importantly, he treated them with respect. Among the other rescued humans was Daeho, a former soldier who had been abducted during a training exercise. There was Nari, an engineer who had been working on a space station prototype when the Varan took her. And there was Hyan, a teenage hacker who had been taken right from his bedroom while playing video games. They all had stories. They all had people waiting for them on Earth, and they all wanted to go home. Patience, Kelvin told them. The galaxy does not know what humans are yet. If I take you to Earth now, others will follow. They will take more of your kind. We must change the laws first. How do we do that? Daeho asked. We go to the Galactic Council. We make them see that Earth deserves protection. Kelvin looked at all of them, his predator eyes serious. But I warn you, this will not be easy. Many species see humans as weak, as prey, as resources to be harvested. We must prove them wrong. Taemin stepped forward. Then let's prove them wrong. Humans didn't get to the top of Earth's food chain by being weak. We got there by refusing to quit. Kelvin's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. That is the spirit, brother. That is exactly the spirit we will need. The ship turned toward the center of the galaxy, toward the massive station where the Galactic Council met. Taemin looked at his fellow humans, this strange family that had formed from tragedy and survival. They had been victims, but they wouldn't be victims anymore. They were going to change the galaxy's mind about humanity. One way or another. And with the Alpha Hunters standing beside them, they actually had a chance. Axis Station was the largest structure Taemin had ever seen. It floated in space at the center of the galaxy, a massive wheel of metal and light where representatives from thousands of worlds came to meet. This was the heart of galactic civilization. This was where laws were made and destinies decided. And Taemin, a 17-year-old kid from Seoul who had been working in a convenience store 2 months ago, was about to address the Galactic Council. Remember what we practiced, Kelvin said as they walked through the station's gleaming corridors. Speak with confidence. Show them that humans are not prey. Taemin nodded. Behind him walked Yuna, Jiwoo, Daeho, Nari, Hyan, and the other rescued humans. They wore simple clothes that Kelvin had provided, and they carried themselves as tall as they could manage. But Taemin could see the fear in their eyes. They were about to walk into a room full of the galaxy's most powerful beings. The council chamber was enormous. Circular tiers rose up on all sides, each filled with alien representatives. Thousands of different species, from the familiar reptilian Voron to beings made of pure energy. At the center of the chamber was a speaking platform, and above that sat the council speaker. An ancient creature named Velmora, who looked like a floating jellyfish made of light dot as the humans entered. Conversation stopped. Every eye in the chamber turned to look at them. Taemin felt his skin crawl under the weight of all that attention. The council recognizes Calvin, Alpha Hunter of the Valkyr. Velmora announced in a voice that echoed through the chamber. You have requested this emergency session. Speak. Calvin stepped forward. I bring before you the species known as humans, from the planet Earth. They are a pre-contact species that has been illegally harvested by the Voron Syndicate and sold into slavery. I demand that Earth be placed under protected status immediately. A ripple of reaction went through the chamber. In one of the high tiers, Taemin saw Captain Rictor, the Voron who had abducted him. The reptilian captain's eyes burned with hatred. Protected status? Another council member spoke up, a massive creature covered in thick armor. Why should we protect a species that hasn't even achieved space travel? They are primitives? They are more than they appear, Kelvin replied. I asked that the council hear testimony from one of them. Taemin of Earth stepped forward. Taemin's heart hammered as he walked to the speaking platform. Thousands of aliens stared down at him. He was so small compared to most of them. So weak-looking. He could see it in their eyes. They thought he was nothing but good. Let them underestimate him. Humans have been underestimated before. Speak, human, Velmora said. Tell the council why your species deserves protection. Taemin took a deep breath. I don't think we deserve protection because we're special. I think we deserve it because it's right. The law says pre-contact species can't be abducted and enslaved. But that's exactly what happened to us. To me, to these people behind me, and to who knows how many other humans still out there in the arenas. The law applies to species with potential, another council member argued. Your kind scores low on every physical measure. Weak, slow, fragile. You are prey animals. You're right, Taemin said, surprising everyone. Humans are weak. We're not the fastest or the strongest. On Earth, there are animals that can kill us easily. Big cats, bears, even tiny things like bacteria and viruses kill us. Earth is constantly trying to kill humans. Then why protect such a weak species? Richter called out from his tier. They will die out anyway. Taemin looked up at the Voron captain. Because we didn't die out. Humans survived on a planet where everything was stronger than us. We survived ice ages and plagues and predators. We survived because we adapted. We learned. We worked together. That's what humans do better than any other species I've met. We refuse to die. Pretty words, Richter sneered. But words don't change biology. Humans are inferior specimens. Profitable, but inferior. If we're so inferior, why did I beat your arena fighters? Taemin shot back. Why did I wound the Alpha Hunter in a hunt? Why are we standing here instead of dead in your arenas? The chamber erupted in arguments. Some council members shouted that humans should be protected. Others argued they were too dangerous, too unpredictable. Still others simply wanted them left alone to be harvested. Velmora raised a tendril for silence. The council is divided. We require more information. Tell us, human Taemin, what makes your species worthy of standing among the stars? Taemin thought about everything he had been through. The abduction, the arena, the hunts. All of it had taught him something important about humans. Most species here evolved as apex predators on their worlds, Taemin said slowly. working through the idea as he spoke. You were the strongest, the fastest, the most deadly. You never had to struggle to survive. But humans? We started as prey. We were weak and slow. Everything hunted us. That is our point, an armored council member interrupted. You are prey. We were prey, Taemin corrected. But we refused to stay prey. We learned to make tools. We learned to hunt in packs. We learned to outsmart things that were stronger than us. Every single human alive today is descended from the ones who were too stubborn to die. That's in our blood. That's who we are. Eunice stepped forward to join him. From a xenobiology perspective, humans are persistence hunters. We're not fast, but we never stop. We'll chase prey for days until it collapses from exhaustion. We'll try 100 different solutions until one works. We don't give up. Daeho spoke next. I'm a soldier. I've studied warfare my whole life. Every great military mind in human history understood one thing. It's not the strongest army that wins. It's the one that refuses to surrender. One by one, the other humans stepped forward. Each shared their story. Each explained what it meant to be human. The council listened. And slowly, Taemin saw some of them starting to understand, but not everyone was convinced. Riker stood up in his tier. This is nonsense. They are primitives, weak animals that should serve their betters. I move that we deny protection and allow the hunting to continue. Denied. Kelvin's voice thundered through the chamber. The hunting ends now. You have no authority here, Valkyr, Richter hissed. The council decides, not you. That's when alarms began blaring throughout the station. Taemin felt the floor shake under his feet. We're under attack. Someone shouted. The viewing screens lit up with images of ships outside the station. Varan Syndicate vessels, dozens of them. They were firing on Axis Station. This is madness, Velmora declared. Richter, call off your ships. They're not mine, Richter said with a cruel smile. But I won't mourn if a few humans die in the crossfire. The Syndicate wants its property back. Kelvin's eyes blazed with fury. You would attack a council station? This is an act of war. Explosions rocked the chamber. Part of the outer wall cracked, and emergency shields activated to keep the air in. Council members were screaming and trying to evacuate. Tae-Min saw Jiwoo fall as the floor tilted. Without thinking, he ran to the boy and pulled him to safety. Around him, the other humans were helping aliens who had fallen, guiding them to the emergency exits. We need to get to the defense stations. Daeho shouted. We can help fight them off. You can't, a council guard said. Those systems require trained operators. I'm a hacker, Hyan said. And humans are really good at figuring things out under pressure. Show me the systems. For the next hour, chaos reigned. The Varan attacked, trying to breach the station. But they hadn't counted on the humans. Hyan managed to boost the station's shields by rerouting power. Nari, the engineer, helped repair damaged systems. Daeho coordinated with the station's military forces, using human tactical thinking to predict enemy movements, and Taemin, along with Kelvin, led a defense of the council chamber itself. When Varan boarding parties tried to break in, it was just like the arena, but bigger. Taemin used every trick he had learned. He set traps. He coordinated with the other humans. He adapted to each new challenge as it came. In the midst of the battle, Kelvin fought like the legend he was. But even he couldn't be everywhere at once. When a Varan soldier got past him and aimed a weapon at Jiwoo, it was Taemin who threw himself in front of the boy. The blast hit Taemin in the side. Pain exploded through his body. He fell, gasping. No. Kelvin roared. He tore through the attackers with savage fury, reaching Taemin's side. Brother, stay with me. Taemin coughed, tasting blood. Is Is Jiwoo okay? I'm okay. The boy was crying, his hands pressed against Taemin's wound. You saved me. You saved me again. Kelvin lifted Taemin gently. You would sacrifice yourself for a child not even of your blood. This is the spirit of Pack. This is what it means to be Valkyr. His voice cracked. This is what it means to be brother. Medical teams were arriving now, along with reinforcements from the station's security forces. The Varan attack was failing. They had underestimated how strongly the Council would respond to an attack on their home dot. As Taemin was carried to the medical bay, he saw Velmora floating above the carnage. The ancient council speaker was glowing brighter than before. The council has seen enough, Velmora declared. Humans have proven their worth today. They fought to protect not just themselves, but all of us. They showed courage, ingenuity, and selflessness. Earth will be granted protected status. Anyone who violates this protection will face the